Hello viewers and welcome to the California garden in the month of February. We will begin with the garden tour. We will look at all the harvests that we made during this month. We will look at what's growing in the California garden in the month of February, and then we'll look at the things to do in your garden this month. So in the past month, we've had a lot of rain, even a couple of days of hailstorm, as you must have seen during the last month. So the garden is still recovering from all that inclement weather, and let's see how the garden responded to it. So let's begin with the garden tour. In the first bed we have some cabbages growing. These are different varieties of cabbages, followed by some carrots and some pepper plants in the center. And you can see these onions, these have been growing for a while now, and they've grown pretty large, and they haven't started bulbing yet, but they will do so once the weather warms up. And these are the 45-day cabbages. They are now beginning to produce their heads, and we'll be able to harvest them within a month. Followed by the Jacinto kale, which is now growing very well. And moving on to the broccoli, this is the Gypsy hybrid broccoli, and as you can see here, pretty large heads. And we did harvest some broccoli this month, and I will show you that in the harvest section. And then we'll be continuing to harvest this next month as well. Followed by some cauliflower, which is growing in the container. And in the next bed we have more brassicas. As you saw last month, they were very small, and now they have been growing in size. And the container has some more cauliflower plants, as you can see. And then the other raised bed on the other side has some onion plants that are growing, followed by a couple of cabbages. These are also the 45-day cabbages that we will be harvesting soon. And finally the overwintered eggplants. Now they look a lot better now compared to what they were last month when we had the hailstorm. And as you can see here, I've added a lot of compost to this bed. So I've pretty much emptied one large container of compost in this bed so that it becomes available for the next plants, the next season. So there we have it. That was the garden tour. And now let's move on to the harvest section. We harvested a lot of broccoli. This is the Gypsy hybrid broccoli. And if you look at the broccoli heads, this is how your heads should be. They should be nice and firm and round. If you have heads that are growing very long and they look like they're almost flowering, that's not the right way to grow broccoli. What you see here is how your broccoli head should look like. And this month we were able to harvest a lot of large heads. And as you can see here, there are some broccoli growing along the sides as well. So over the next 1 month, we will be able to harvest some more broccoli heads. And now moving on to the dragon cayenne pepper. This pepper has been overwintered, and it did produce a lot of good peppers that we harvested throughout the month of February. And remember that this is growing in a small 5-gallon container, which is pretty much the minimum size that you should grow your pepper plants in. And this is a hot pepper variety, and I'm pretty happy with this pepper variety that I grew last season, and I'm continuing that this year. Moving on to our next harvest, we did harvest a lot of our Dancy tangerines. Now you've been watching all the Dancy tangerines grow from the last few months, and the tree was loaded this month as well, and we harvested a lot of these Dancy tangerines. Now between November and February, the fruits taste amazing. They are the sweetest. They do have seeds. This is not a seedless variety, but it does have the original tangerine taste and one of the best tangerine varieties that you can grow in your home garden. And you've been watching a lot of my videos on growing Dancy tangerines. I also have detailed videos on growing this plant, so do check out all my videos so that you can get information on how to grow this tangerine variety. Moving on to our next harvest, we harvested our final eggplant in February. That was the final one from the perspective of the last season. Now as the weather warms up, I expect this plant to grow and produce some more eggplants. And moving on to the Kishu Mandarin. Now I had a detailed video on this mandarin variety last month, and you can see that this mandarin plant did produce a lot of mandarins, small petite mandarins that we harvested this month. And this is an excellent plant to grow great snacking kind of mandarins. And as you can see here, I've grown this in a container. And if you look at the mandarin, once again, it looks pretty small, just looks like any other mandarin, but tastes pretty amazing. Excellent taste. Now let's look at the Meyer lemons. The Meyer lemons are specifically grown for making lemonades. It's a very unique lemon variety that will give you excellent quality lemonades. So once you start growing Meyer lemons, you will never look back. It's a great lemon variety to grow in your garden. And we have another lime variety that's growing in our home garden. This is the bear's lime or the Persian limes. And this lime variety is very tart. It's a seedless lime variety and it's got a very unique taste. Now I just really love the bear's lime as well. The taste is very unique. And we use our bear's lime or the Persian limes to season our food. So it's more used for cooking. You can still use it for making lemonades. If you like tart lemonades, these Persian limes will give you excellent tasting lemonades as well. So with lemons, you do have a lot of options. You need to see what you want to do with your lemons and then grow those varieties accordingly. And now let's move on to our spinach harvest. So in the garden tour, you saw that we didn't have any spinach growing in this bed. And the reason is that we did complete the harvest of our spinach variety that we were growing. This is the flat leaf butter spinach. It's an excellent spinach variety that you can grow in your home garden. And here we are harvesting this spinach variety. It's got very nice leaves. It's got a very nice taste as well. So this is one of the different kind of spinach varieties. The common varieties are the curled kind of spinach, which has curled leaves. And this spinach variety has flatter leaves. It tastes a little different. And it's an excellent variety to grow at home. And now moving on to our taro root harvest. Now, if you've been following my videos, you have been noticing that we grew a lot of taro root in our home garden. It's an excellent starchy alternative to potatoes, and you can easily grow them in zone 10. Now, some of our users had asked a question whether you can grow taro in zone 10 easily, and the answer is yes, you can easily grow them in zone 10. We have been growing taro root in containers, in raised beds for many years now. And they give you an excellent yield with just a small amount of space. They do need a lot of water though, so as long as you make sure your plants are hydrated, the taro root will produce a lot of good tubers. And you can see the tubers here, they look pretty good. And from just a small container like this, with a couple of plants growing, you can get a decent harvest. And that's what I like about the taro root plant. Now you can use the leaves as well of the taro plant, and you can use the tubers, which is the main part of the plant. And once you're done, you can just replant the same plant. Here you can see once the taro roots are washed and dried a little bit, just for about half an hour, they look very nice. And in the next section, let's look at what's growing in the California garden. So as you all know, last month we got a lot of hail and some bad weather, a lot of cold days. So let's see how our plants reacted to it. So first here you can see the pineapple plant. It was covered with ice and you can clearly see the frost damage. Now the plant hasn't died, but it does look pretty bad. It's got leaves that, are pretty damaged. So we'll see how this recovers. And moving on to our next plant, which is the broccoli. The gypsy hybrid broccoli, it's been growing very well in our garden this month, and we are ready for harvest and some more next month. And we are also growing some peas in this container, and you might have seen this plant very small in the past few months, and it's growing pretty well. Peas are a cool season crop and they will grow very well during this kind of weather. Early spring is one of the best times to grow pea plants. And now let's look at the things to do in your garden this month. The first activity you want to do is pruning. This is probably the last month you have when you can prune your fruit trees while they are still dormant. So if you haven't pruned your fruit trees yet, this is a good time to do that. Prune all your fruit trees this month. And the next important step is to repot your plants before they grow in the spring season, which is coming up next month. So here we are transplanting this strawberry plant. We have a new container for this plant with a lot of good potting mix and a lot of good organic matter. And if you look at this pot where the strawberry was growing, the soil level had depleted a lot. So this is a good example of a container that needs repotting. So go around your garden and look at plants that need repotting and then transplant them into a different container. Your plants will definitely thank you for this. And this applies specifically to plants that might get root bound as well. And here you can see that after we transplanted this plant, we remove all the dead stems around the plant, make sure the plant has enough space around in the container, and this will allow the plant to send out more roots and grow much better in the upcoming growing season. Now strawberry plants must be grown for about 3 years, after which you should discard them. They grow in the first year and they produce heavily in the second and the third years. And then after the third year, it's time to start over again. And what we are doing now is preparing a container by adding a lot of organic matter. Here we are adding some chicken manure to this potting mix and this pot. And we are preparing this for our mint plant. Now mint is another plant that you should repot or transplant this growing season. This is a good time to do that. What you do is you just remove all the dead leaves around the mint plant and make sure that the plant is in a good condition before you remove it. And mint gets very root bound and it gets root bound very quickly. So I highly recommend that you check your mint plants and then prune them like this, what you see here. And you can leave them in the container this way, or like what I am planning to do now is just take the good plants, the good shoots, and then transplant them to the container that we just prepared. You can see how depleted the soil level is. When we started this plant, it was right at the top, and now we've lost a lot of soil. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking these mint cuttings and then transplanting them into this new container where they will grow very well. Sow your summer vegetable seeds if you haven't already done that. You can see here we have sowed our pepper seeds and the tomatoes are now growing very well in the greenhouse. They have germinated and we're growing a lot of tomato varieties. So it's a good time to sow your seeds. And then the next activity that you need to remember to do is to add a lot of organic matter, a lot of amendments to your soil. Now I wanted to show you one compost, a bagged compost variety that I usually use in my garden. And again, I'm not associated with this company or anything to do with this company at all. But after having tried all the products in the garden store, this is one product that I really like because it's got a really good composition. It's got a lot of good things inside it. It's called Eco Scraps Compost. And if you're not making your own compost, this is a good compost variety to buy. Now I do recommend that you always make your own compost. This is something every gardener must do. When you make your own compost, you can use them anytime you want. You can spread them on your raised bed as you see here. Your homemade compost is pretty much free to make. You just put in your food scraps, you put in your grass clippings, and you put in all your leaves that you get in your yard, and you can easily make some good quality compost with that. And if you start making compost at home, you will see that over a period of time, your soil will be enriched with a lot of organic matter, and you won't see the results immediately, but you will see the results over a period of time. Keep adding compost to your raised beds or to your soil every season. And don't forget to make compost tea. By just using a little bit of compost and using the method that we have discussed in our previous videos, you can easily make some good compost tea that you can use for your garden. So there we have it, folks. That was our episode on the February monthly gardening series. If you like this video, do give us a thumbs up and do let us know what you are doing in your garden this month. We'll see you again soon. Happy gardening.